So your point is that there are Druids still among us, as recently as...
Druids are among us today.
Really?
A lot of people think, oh, this is hooded people from yesteryear. It's not true.
Yes.
No, they're still alive.
Some people
The
say
boys
that,
in hoodies are Druids?
In effect, yeah. You could
what
say
about the
that.
rumor that the Druids run show business? Have you ever heard that?
I've heard that they run banking,
Well,
international
that's,
banking.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
partly
yeah.
true. They ran the studios in California in the 30s and 40s.
Druidic
we know
people.
That, yeah, we knew
Amazing.
that.
Didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. See, the Druids are peaceful people by
Really?
nature.
Except for the ones we've hired to dance around the Stonehenge.
Those aren't real Druids.
But they're not very
Those are
peaceful.
show business Druids.
Okay.
Short people.
Short people
Yes.
with...
Very, very unhappy.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a different issue.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Hey folks, welcome back everybody, and welcome to Project Archivist. So what's up?
None. I mean, lots of stuff. I'm psyched about this interview.
You're gonna play this down a little bit, but I'm gonna play it up. This interview is kind of funny because as the interview was scheduled, Homeboy here was in the process of going through a hurricane or just getting out of the hurricane. It's like right before the show, I'm like, "Are we gonna record? Are we gonna record?" And you were like, "I don't know." So I got to apologize to Stars, because I'm like bugging her at the last minute. I'm like, "Can you do this interview with me? Lobo doesn't know if he can make it." But you're all like, "No, must be there for the fans, must be there for show." And you're trying to rush the wife out the door after a hurricane so you could get the house to yourself to record the interview. I'm bugging Stars. She's trying to play Left 4 Dead. I'm crashing her system, dialing her Skype number instead of your Skype number, and blah, blah, blah. But we managed to pull it together and got the show up and running.
It was quite the folly.
It was quite the folly. And tonight we're interviewing Mick Doyle and Roisin Walsh. Not Roisin, Roisin. And they are from East Coast Paranormal Investigations. And I've said before that I normally don't want to do ghost hunter interviews, but the only reason that we did this show is because Mick and Roisin run a ghost hunting organization out of Dublin, Ireland. They're great people to talk to. They're really cool. And the reason that we wanted to get them on the show was to talk to them about see what differences there are between ghost hunting organizations overseas and how they do things and how they view things, as compared to how we view things and how we do things in the United States. And we wanted to get a little feedback from what it's like from the other side of the pond. And I figured Ireland's a pretty cool place. You know, that's just basically, I started talking through Mick through Facebook, and I talked to him on Skype, and he was a pretty cool guy. And we said, hey, let's get these guys on the show and hear what they got to say. I don't know. I thought it went pretty well. I thought it went pretty good.
Yeah, it went off without a hitch.
All right, well, I guess let's just let's roll the interview and we'll talk about it after it's done. All right, one more thing I wanted to add before we run the interview. Keep in mind the audio quality on this is a little bit weird at times because we are Skyping with 4 people, literally all the way around the world. So we've got one person in North Ireland and another person, I believe, in Mid-Ireland. If that makes any sense, I don't know. And then you've got us, which is Detroit and Connecticut. So we're pulling 4 people from all over the world. So the audio gets a little weird. So just bear with us a little bit. I'll do what I can to clean it up. Today we're going to be talking with Mick, and I hope I say this right, Roisin. You guys are from ECPI. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, that's East Coast Paranormal Investigations.
And tell everybody where you're from.
We're based in Dublin here in Ireland.
Basically, we've got you guys on the show. We normally don't have ghost investigators on the show because they usually tend to tell the same stories over and over and over again, which is fine, but after a while, that kind of thing gets a little old. And we wanted to have you guys on here because you're from Ireland and because you're from that part of the world. You guys have a different perspective on things, and you guys have a much richer, deeper tradition. And I think realistically, you guys have probably been doing this for a lot longer than America. Not you guys per se, but just your part of the world. So we wanted to have you on here to talk about some of the investigations that you do. I know you guys do a lot of castles, and you've done some residential stuff too. I know you can't talk about the residential stuff that much because of confidentiality agreements.
Yeah.
And we're totally fine with that. So we'll let you guys talk about as much of that as you want to. If you have to change names and so forth, we're fine. We're not going to press you on that. Okay. So I guess let's get started. You said you're based out of Dublin, correct?
Yeah, Dublin is the capital city here in Ireland. We cover all over Ireland in our investigations. Not just the East Coast. We go all over. We're in the process of an investigation now this Friday in the castle in Kildare, which is close to the Midlands here in Ireland. We're down there on Friday. We're also away then next month to Northern Ireland, where Roisin is from. And we were there, myself and Roisin were in this other castle called Shane's Castle yesterday. I think you've seen the photographs, pictures we put up on our Facebook team page. It's got about, I think this place goes back to the 1400s, 1500s. So we're looking at...
Well, 1345.
Well, 14th
Good
century.
gravy.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at most of what we'll be investigating there is all underground. We're looking at miles and miles of caverns and tunnels. No power whatsoever, so everything we're going in is on DC, which is just battery power.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we're bringing in that'll be a 2-night investigation on the 23rd and 24th of next month. I'm the team leader and founder of the team. Roisin is the historian and researcher for us. We'll be bringing about maybe 13, 14 investigators with us to cover the area because it's so large. And it's all, again, 90% of it is underground.
Wow,
And you were
holy
saying
cow.
that they held Spanish soldiers or something like that? to that
They held
effect?
sailors there. Roisin should be able to tell you more about that. I think out of over 300 that went in there that were held for ransom, only 24 or 25 actually walked out of the place. So the rest were either died through starvation and through ill treatment and obviously being tortured and everything else there. That would be just one of the locations that we will be doing. The other places, you may have heard them, the like of Lep Castle.
Yes.
Ghost hunters and GHI would have done it. We do that regularly. We would be there in that castle pretty regular, and we would be building up our own database of these locations and of the evidence that we gather at these locations.
So you've actually got an ongoing database from that location, then you'd say.
Of every location.
This is something like you guys just do all the time then. It's not, this isn't like, well, we're going to hit here once and then not go into it again. You go to these places repeatedly over and over again and actually collect like category-wise data.
We will collect the data on a regular basis, Lep would be one of the most regular haunts, if you pardon the pun. Then we would have the like of also what's within that particular area in the Midlands, which is in Tullamore in County Offaly. We have what's called the Paranormal Triangle. Unlike the Bermuda Triangle, this is called the Paranormal Triangle, which is 3 castles. Starts off with Charleville Castle, Kinnity Castle, and then it finishes with Lep. They're all within 15-20 minutes of each other. We have they're pretty active, yeah.
Are they along the ley lines there, or is that just...
They are along the ley lines, yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Do you find more activity on the ley lines?
Well, I mean, if that's the protocol you want to follow, and mediums do say that spiritual energy would follow along ley lines as it would along flowing streams and rivers.
Mm-hmm.
One particular castle we're doing at the moment where we are on Friday is White's Castle. That's also on their page. That's on a river in Kildare. So that's extremely active. That would be even more active than Lep Castle would be.
Right.
Again, that was built in 1417. So we're in castles that are, some would be 800 years old, some would be 1,000 years old.
Wow.
Plus we're investigating also other medieval sites, and then we're also we actually tame these as our fun locations.
Wow.
This is where we Lep Castle is very synonymous with the elemental that they have there.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about that in a little bit. Well, let me ask, Roisin, let me ask you a question. Before you guys go into an investigation, I would assume that the work starts with you, with going in and checking out the history and the background of these places.
Yes, very much so, yes.
How much work do you put into finding research about these places, and how much of the research do you find actually does assist you in the investigations? Like when you guys go in and deem a place that could have some activity to it, how much of that do you find correlates with the history that you find?
I mean, very much so. Basically, I find everything that's possibly available. I mean, I start, particularly if Mick is saying, I mean, particularly this one for Shane's Castle that we're going to be doing. You know, I go through libraries, internet, historians. I go through everything and get anything that's sort of logged about the location.
When you go in to talk to these people, do you tell them up front that you're going in there to do a ghost investigation, or are you just telling them, hey, I'm interested in the history on this place?
Well, I mean, for me, basically, because of my love of history, I mean, I don't, some of them, I mean, particularly the one now in Shane's Castle, the guy that owns that castle and owns that castle estate, he's aware of what we're going in for. You know, I have told him when I went up for the meeting with him, you know, I let him be aware of what we were going to do. But I mean, it is important to the investigation to find out as much history as possible, because, you know, when you're going in there and you're aware of situations that have happened in there, particularly now with this one that we're going to in Shane's Castle, and I'm speaking mainly about it because we were up there yesterday. I mean, you're going in there and you're aware that there has been so many people killed in there, or, you know, many lives lost in those places. You're going to go in there and to be able to know,
put a face on it was more or less
to
what
put
you're
a
saying.
face on it, basically, yes, to say, like, you know, this has happened at this part of the castle, and it gives you a better understanding, and it also helps with the investigators as well, you know, for calling out, you know, to be able to call out names. I try and get as many names as I can as well, you know, associated with the deaths in the place. So it means, for instance, our Mick is going to be able to call out names that I have been able to link with the location.
Do you find that when you go in to ask these people about this stuff, have you encountered a lot of people give you a lot of strangeness about it? Or are they usually pretty forthcoming when they realize what you're going in there to do when you're looking for the history?
Well, I mean, most of them are pretty forthcoming, but, you know, a lot of it, if they point me in the right direction, I tend to hook out most of it, as I would put it, or go and look up most of it myself. You know, it's something that I would rather take the time and do rather than going and ask them. I get somebody to point me in the right direction as to where I can find the information. And I mean, again, it goes down to a lot of my love of Irish history. Irish history is a very strong subject for me, particularly castles.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
It seems to be what your guys' bread and butter is. But yeah, that's cool, though. That's fine. See, we don't have that here. I mean, we've got, what do you say, Lobo, 200 years old tops, maybe? You know?
No, really? My town that I live in was formed in 1670. England gave us the land before that. So we're looking at, you know, I mean, we're tiny in comparison to, you know, where the history was made. But, you know, my town is 300 and change years old.
So these guys are going into places that are older than that, easily.
You guys have hubcaps over there that are older than we are. So, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, there's another place in particular too, Dunluce Castle. You probably have seen the pictures on the ECPI website as well, where there was the Spanish Armada. I'm sure if you guys heard of it, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the Girona, I think it's called, is one of the ships from the Armada, actually crashed just beside or just off the land beside Dunluce Castle. There was 1,200 men lost in that. And they were buried in a mass grave just up in the castle that Mick and myself were in a few weeks ago as well. And I mean, we have captured some images there. You know, I've actually got them framed into pictures and I sit in the kitchen. You know, it's some fantastic history. So there is fantastic history.
So what else do you do on the team besides dig up the history? Do you have another specific role on the team, or is pretty much, are you the one they say, all right, we need to know about this, and they sick you out on it?
No, and I mean, I like to get it when I get a chance. I would call out. I mean, I go out in as many of the investigations as I can. Obviously, I live up in the north. I mean, I'm hoping to move down out to the south of Ireland before Christmas. But you know, I use the K2 meters and stuff like that as well. So I do, and do basically what I can or whatever. And what she's told is more like it. Yes, what I'm told. Actually.
Wow.
Yeah, what I'm told today.
All right, Mick. I'm going to jump over to you now. How did you go about getting into this? What made you come along and say?
No, I've only been doing it 2 years. It'll be 2 years now, actually, in November. I always had an interest in the paranormal. I joined my first team. I actually went on my first investigation back in 2009 down in Wicklow Jail, which is a very old jail, 18th century, 17th century. Barry Fitzgerald was on that investigation from GHI.
Yep.
And that was my first investigation to go on as a member of the public. I then joined my first team in January of 2010 up to June of that year, when the team disbanded. I then last year in September I went freelance for a few months and then decided to set up ECPI then. Since then we're one of the busiest teams going.
Did you have a spark moment? Was there something that said, I need to do this? Did you have something happen to you outside of the realm of ghost hunting that made you say, all right, this is something that's going to, was there something that propelled you into it?
Well, I mean, I've had experiences as a child, obviously, and then I was a serviceman over here in Ireland, a soldier for 21 years. So I've had various experiences during my time in the army. And then, obviously, because of where I was, stationed, I would have been stationed in very old military barracks that would have went back to colonial times, the British here in Ireland. So I'd already had experiences, and that's always had, stemmed my interest in it. And then last year decided then to get into it full time, and we're out every weekend. Well, nearly every weekend. Sometimes midweek when we do our private stuff. We don't charge. Everything is free. We go look after our clients on a regular basis. Basically, that's it. Really, we're out there doing it.
Sorry.
Okay.
Is that a tiny little train coming through?
That's our phone.
Holy stikes.
We're basically out there regularly. I have a team of 10 people, and I normally have between 5 and 6 investigators at each investigation. Plus, we work with other teams here within Ireland also. And I've also got a David Durancourt from our Irish American Paranormal Studies in Ireland here at the moment. David's a friend of mine. He's coming on to White's Castle this Friday. And he's also doing the Northern Ireland investigation with us as well. And David's an international team member. Mm-hmm. So we have worked with some of the a couple of American teams that have come here.
Do you find that you guys are learning from one another, or do you teach each other different things, or do they have? That's the next question I was going to go into. It's a great way to segue into it. What do you find that American teams do different than what you guys do?
They spend a lot of time around cemeteries over there.
Yeah.
They make for the best neighbors, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time around cemeteries. When they come here and they come out with us, for example, they are in, if you want the word to use, in awe, of where we could bring them. Again, I would use the most famous place that they seem to all want to go to is Lep Castle, because they've seen it on GHI and they've seen it on Ghost Hunters. They've seen that guy Brian running out of Lep Castle with his tail between his legs and everything else.
That guy runs away from everything.
Well, if one of my investigators around, they can keep running because they won't be coming back.
Nice.
Well
done, sir.
We've been in Lep Castle, and we've been down in where this incident had occurred to Brian. And Roisin has been down in the place I would speak about. It's called the Oubliette.
Yeah.
Which is basically a cell or a prison in the floor of the bloody chapel in Lep Castle. Okay.
In the chapel.
In the chapel, yeah. The chapel is on the very top of Lep Castle.
So they've been doing bad things in churches for a long, long time.
A long time. A long time. And
Nice.
they used to throw people down into the oubliette, and there was only one way in and one way out. Okay. And they had spikes in the floor. When they threw the people in there, they were obviously became impaled on the spikes through the legs and the buttocks
Nice.
and everything. If they were lucky, they would be
If you're
killed
lucky.
outright.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, you were killed outright. If you weren't lucky, you were left to starve or die of thirst. The oubliette was situated. The oubliette was situated in such a way that the only light that comes in through it is from a arrow slit in the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically had it positioned over the kitchen so that the prisoners could smell the food being cooked.
Oh.
And that further added to the torture. About 100 years ago, when they were clearing out the bloody chapel and the oubliette, they removed 5 cartloads of bones.
Whoa.
Wow.
From the oubliette. Again, Lep Castle is a lived-in home. It's owned by Sean Ryan and his family. They lease it out to investigators and people to come and investigate it.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of activity within the castle, especially up there in the bloody chapel, where back in the 1400s, a brother killed brother in that a priest. His brother, who was serving mass at the time in the chapel, his brother who wanted to take over, there was a fight going on, clan versus clan and everything else. So he cut his throat.
In church?
In the church while he was serving it.
During Mass?
During Mass, yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
That's so badass.
He cut his throat. So basically what that's one of the instances that's happened there. We, some months ago, since that happened back in the 15th century, we reenacted the actual stabbing.
No kidding.
We do that as well, yeah. We reenact, say, maybe an execution, or we would reenact a particular episode from the history of the location. Again, it's based on the Singapore theory, where we would try and get a reaction, from wherever's there, rather than wait for something to happen. We encourage it to happen.
Right.
So you're not actually being rude about it. You're just actually reenacting things to provoke things rather than going in and calling things names.
We do provoke. I'm not going to lie and say that we don't provoke. We provoking will be done when it's only absolutely necessary to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, they would only be done with if you want to call them, the darker entities, rather than you're going in there provoking everything that was there. You're not. You're only going in there to provoke something that needs to be provoked.
Right. See, now, Roisin is completely against provoking.
Well, I wouldn't say completely against it. It's a matter of how it's done. If it's a matter of going in and just purposely trying to provoke something to be rude, that's one thing. But if you're going in and doing reenactments and things like that, that's a horse of another color. But to just walk into a place and start calling something names and being rude to it, because
we don't do that.
Yeah, that's a whole different story though. Because
that would be disrespectful.
Yeah, exactly. It's not for me it's a matter of respect. I mean, you're dead. You've been in a place for a long time. For whatever reason, you're locked in there, or however it works. And then in come these people, and they start throwing names at you and just being a jerk to you. That's a different thing. Whereas you guys, it's not a disrespectful thing. So that's
not to a certain extent. Well, I won't lie and say that we don't. We try not, because we do draw them out. And to such an extent where they would be physical with us.
Well, having heard that, what is the craziest thing that you've been on yet? What is the thing that's where it's like has there been a time yet where you've gone into something you said to yourself, hey, we might be a little bit over our neck here?
No.
Okay.
Well, it depends. It depends on where you're looking at it from.
Okay.
Yeah.
As in, would we back away from it, or would we just stop what we're doing?
Well, have you walked into a situation yet where things have gotten, close to being out of control, where you said to yourself, you know what, we might be in over our heads right now?
No,
have you ever had a situation like that?
No, I would intensify it then.
Well done, sir. Well done. I do the same thing.
Yeah, I would not back away from anything. I would intensify it and keep it going.
Well done. I chase after stuff. People call me crazy.
Well, yeah, I think you have to ask Roisin that there, whether I'm crazy or not.
Totally crazy. Sorry.
Awesome.
I mean, Mick just goes for it.
Well, we had a conversation a little while ago, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 shows ago, and we were talking about the phenomenon here that's black-eyed children. I don't know if you guys have anything like that.
As in demonics, is that what you're talking about?
Oh, there's speculation as to what they are. Some people believe they're demonic, some people believe they're interdimensional. At some point, they're terrifying. Now, if I actually have gone out looking for particular instances of that, because when I was a little child, I had what would be considered a demonic situation going on. So I actually look for this stuff because I want to know what it is and why it's doing it.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, we go looking for it, and most times we find it. So.
Well done, sir. Well done.
It's you would find it interesting over here, Lobo. I have to say that some of the places that we do, especially the castles, and some of the castles that have never been investigated.
I'd be in that hardcore.
that's never ever been investigated. These are the ones that we're now going into, and we'll first time you go in, kid gloves.
Really?
Till you know what you're dealing with. You know, the Northern Ireland the investigation next month up in Northern Ireland will be an example of that.
Really?
Where you go in with kid gloves first, and because you're going to be putting people into situations and yourself. Well, I mean, I was there yesterday with Roisin, so we knew. We have an idea what's there.
Mm-hmm.
So when we bring the investigators up and we put them in pairs, because they're going to be interspersed in various vaults and tunnels underneath the castle. And we also found the escape tunnel while we were there as well, and it's under the cemetery.
Really?
And that was an eye-opener for us to find it. And I had the key on me that opened up the gate to it. So,
really?
Yes, we had the keys. We were able to access the tunnels and go into them.
Oh,
wow.
That must have been awesome.
It was. Yeah,
it was awesome. It really was.
The full spectrum and also digital photographs are on our Facebook page, Lobo, for you to watch or for you to look at.
I will do that.
They are there, and various other things.
Yeah, they are some awesome pictures too.
I will do that.
Well, what is the craziest thing that you have ran into yet? What is of anything that you saw? What is the thing that particularly sticks out in your mind the most?
In my mind.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Or have you seen it all at this point?
I can't say I've been scared. I would say apprehensive. I think an incident that that happened to me in White's Castle the following morning after an investigation, when we were just walking around, opened my eyes a little bit and had me going to the doctor for a couple of days. So, that would have been, I think, the scariest thing. Roisin would be able to tell you about that.
That was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. I mean, so we were walking around the castle just after. I mean, there was only Mick, one other investigator, a member of the public, and myself. And I was actually on my own with Mick, and he started coughing and choking. Now, we were actually up at a part where there was...
This was the next morning.
The next morning, and we were in a part of the castle where there had been an executioner. And he was quite a brutal. I mean, it's well documented that he was a very brutal executioner with it. And Mick started choking and started getting rope marks come round his neck. Now, this was at 8:30 in the morning.
Wow.
You know, it was bright, and the rope marks. And Mick was trying to actually pull this thing from around his neck, and he was choking and choking. I got him outside. He was still choking. We tried giving him water, and eventually Mick himself said, after a few minutes, I've got to go back in and face it. And the four of us went back into the castle again, and Mick and myself both then were calling at it to say, right, to leave him. Because I think if he had been much longer, I really do think, his neck was raw red with rope marks. And it completely opened my eyes. And, I've heard stories like that and never would have believed it until I seen it.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Well, I would have said, you know, when you see those things in TV and movies and blah, blah, you think to yourself, yeah, right. But, you know, that terrified me. And, you know, Mick's come back to that place again now on Friday night as well, to the same place. And the fortunate thing about it is I know Mick only too well, and Mick's not going to back down from it. Mick's going to go and, you know, he's going to face this guy again. So he is, without a doubt.
Well, I've been back there. I've been back there since a couple of times. So, you know,
yeah.
Mick, was this the place you told me about that you were going to go in there and actually simulate a hanging, or was this a different location?
Yes. Oh,
look at her jump in. Not real happy about that, are you?
No, I'm not.
In the execution chamber, yeah, we will. Not yet, though. I was going to use, if you pardon the pun, I'm putting it on hold at the moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've watched Mick, particularly in that place, that building he's talking about, the Bloody Chapel. You know, when Mick was there at the start of the year, do you mind me saying, Mick, that you ended up... You know, Mick, I mean, after the investigation in January in Leap Castle, Mick was in hospital for, was it 3 to 5 days after?
5 days in hospital, yeah, just before Christmas, yeah.
Yeah. You know, and when we were back there in July, Mick done a reenactment up in the chapel where Mick had a dagger, you know, sitting on a table, pointing it up towards him with his hands behind his back. You know, and he was provoking the man that had actually cut his brother's throat. What do you call him?
Tig or Carol, yeah.
Yeah, Tig. He was provoking him, right, come on, push me, do it to me. You know, and I'm standing, I couldn't even look. Because I thought, right, I mean, if Mick was down on his hands and knees in front of this thing with this dagger pointed right at his chest. So it was just completely crazy, but it was what he does.
Once we get it on video, guys, you know.
Yeah, he's saying, Mick's saying to me, right, Roisin, if I fall onto this thing, just keep the video going.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
You're bleeding to death. Did we get the footage?
Yeah, that's what
on
he's
the footage.
Yeah.
See, now this doesn't really surprise me. I mean, Mick, you had stated that you were in the Army, the Irish Army, for 21 years.
I was, yeah.
Yeah. See, I have buddies that are in the military. If a human being hasn't been able to take you out, you're going to be hard pressed to be afraid of anything.
Well, I'm not saying that we have been in situations where it's been, I suppose, a little unsettling.
Yeah, see, there's a difference between unsettling and being actually scared. Because I know people that run like crybabies when they're scared. So.
Oh well, I always say it when Roisin was trying to have the thing. I said to her, if you run, you keep running, because where are you going to run to?
Yeah, right. How do you run away from something you have no control over?
You know, where are you going to run to? I mean, to be honest with you, if you stay and you face it, or you stay and you continue on with doing your EVPs, you stay you stay there doing your meter readings, using your environmental meter, using everything, all the equipment that you have. What's the most they can do to you? They're not going to do anything because they can't harm you as such, and you're there to try and get as much evidence as possible. And then you're going to keep going back to that location. You could go to that location. It could be extremely quiet. Leap Castle, I've been there now 14 times, roughly, in that one location. And it's only been quiet in once since I've been going.
Oh, hell, they've probably gotten to know you by this point.
Yeah.
Oh, they trust me, they know me. You know, but...
So they're like, Nick's walking in the door again.
Yeah.
All right, places, everybody.
Yeah. We all of our equipment as well comes from the States.
Yeah. Well, you were saying earlier, we had talked before, and I was asking you about how you guys go about procedure, and you had said that you guys take baseline EMF readings and things like that. You don't walk in there just waving them around like lightsabers.
No,
so.
we do. We spend about an hour or so. For an example, this Friday we're away to the investigation will start at 9 p.m. In White's Castle. We'll be there from about 5:30, 6 p.m. setting up, and we'll set up our cameras, our CCTV, IR, night vision equipment, our sound equipment. We'll set all that up, our trigger objects as well, Well, that's going on then. A couple of investigators will be going around taking the base readings, writing them down, and also recording. We'll continue doing that until at least for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
And it's important to note that a lot of these places don't have power, correct?
Just in White's Castle, the only power is on the ground floor. The upper 3 floors then does not have any power. We've got to run wires and cables up from downstairs to give us the AC power for the cameras upstairs and for the sound. Apart from that, that's really all. We also talk, if we're going to a location for the first time, we try and talk with the local people who live in the area. They're the ones that know the most about a location.
Do you find that they're fairly receptive to it, or do they?
They are, yeah, because they're quite curious, and then you get the odd, couple would want to come on an investigation.
Yeah.
They probably have been in. Lep Castle for, God knows how many years has been in the Bloody Chapel, for example. Lights have been seen on a regular basis. Lights, candlelight, or any type of light. There is no power upstairs.
Yeah.
In the Bloody Chapel. Yes, Sean Roisin and his family lived there. His wife and daughter lived there. But Sean has had numerous phone calls from his neighbours and everything else saying, "Hey, Sean, there's lights upstairs." I've seen them myself when you be pulling up, especially in the winter time when you're going to do Lep Castle and you arrive there and it's dark when you arrive and you can actually see a light upstairs in the Bloody Chapel. It's about 80 to 90 feet off the ground. It's up in the tower. There's only one way up to it. They're up what's called mortar steps, which were built, which these things go back to medieval times. There are defensive steps that were built for, fighting off, and you couldn't run up and down them, otherwise you'd fall and break your neck. Okay, that's what they were used for. That's what they call mortar steps.
Have you gotten a lot of EVP from that place?
We have a lot. Quite a lot of profanity from it as well, and we not from us now. We even have some old French from there.
Pardon my French.
Pardon my French is right. There's been a lot of stuff. It's even though I've been there quite a number of times, it's not. People say it's the most haunted location in Ireland. It's actually not. If you want to look at it that way, we find now in some of the other places that we're going into, especially for the first time, and it's that these other places would put this way down the totem pole.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
In relation to not necessarily the history, but the amount of deaths that would have occurred there. I mean, are you familiar with Oliver Cromwell?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm not, but I know he is.
Well, Oliver Cromwell totally decimated Ireland. But,
yeah, a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. He would have had a lot to do with around the time that country down around in Lep as well, and some of the soldiers were actually killed there and murdered by the local rebels. Also, where they were lured there, and I think about 20 of them were thereabouts, and their bodies are still entombed in the walls down there.
Wow.
So there, and we get under what's called the keep area, which is actually underneath the castle. You have to crawl into it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you crawl in there, every time you go in there, you get stones thrown at you.
Yeah, well, I didn't get a chance.
Say that again, Roisin. I didn't hear. What'd you say?
She did. She wasn't allowed in.
Oh, okay.
When we were in the vault area of Shane's Castle yesterday, just myself and Roisin were there. We were there for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
We had stones thrown at us there.
Wow.
Are you talking like pebble stones, rocks? Big rocks.
You could hear them landing, around us. So, and hitting off the wall beside you. We weren't actually.
That was amazing, yeah.
They didn't actually strike us, but in Lep Castle now, people have been hurt by stones being thrown at them.
Huh.
The people have walked out there with some cuts and scrapes, and scratches would be the most popular thing to happen to you. You would feel that hotness on your back or on your chest or on your tummy or your leg, and You know.
Yeah, that's how it is too. I've had scratches form on me before, and it's not actually, you don't actually feel it as a scratch until later on. It feels like a burning sensation going across your arm or something, and then later on it actually turns into kind of a raised welt like scratch. Everybody says, "Oh, I get scratches," and I'll say, "Well, how did it happen?" They go, "Well, something just scratched my skin," and then I usually scratch my head because it's like, nah, it doesn't usually work that way. It's a different kind of sensation. It feels. Kind of hard to describe. It feels kind of like a raised welt or something at some point.
It can be, yeah. I mean, Roisin came to Lep Castle for the first time in July, and they have 3, what he says, 3 spirit children there, 2 little girls and a little boy, and they're drawn to mother figures, as well, and they will take your hand. And it's happened to me. I'm not a mother figure, but one of them's taken my hand, and it's happened. It's happened with mostly women that will go into the castle.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a fantastic experience. That really is. I mean, right long before even the investigation started in Lep, I was actually standing with another girl, and I could actually feel a child, touching my knee. And it happened a couple of times, and it's actually a nice experience because they're not going to harm you, and you really do just want to try and help them if you can. But that's a nice experience to experience that. So it is. There's no fear involved at all.
Do you feel that they know you now because you've been there so much? Do you feel that you've established some kind of a rapport with the children?
Well, I mean, I've only been there once, and I mean, I probably was only in the castle if I was even in it half an hour.
Yeah.
And I had those experiences then. I mean, it was still daylight outside. And you could feel it like a wee hand just running up and down, my knee and down to the bottom part of my leg. And you knew then it was a child.
Did you try to communicate with them at all or anything? Or
I had reached my hand. I had just reached my hand out and said, touch my hand.
Yeah.
But there was nothing. There was nothing. I mean, I think is it the children, Mick, in there that tend to go towards blondes as well?
Yeah. Well, no. There's a particular dark guy, that's Toig. He goes towards blondes. That's up in the bloody chapel. He's the guy that committed the murder on his brother, the priest. In the chapel.
So he seems to like blondes. Yeah.
He goes for blondes, and he touches them up. But you were asking about the elemental.
Yeah. Tell us about the elementals. What have you had? Have you had experiences with those? And what's the history behind elementals?
Well, the elemental is one of the most interesting spirits that resides at Lep. It's an entity that is shrouded in mystery and intrigue. One of the theories in Lep is that it was placed there by the Druids to protect the sacred site that would be used for initiations and druidic magic. That's one of the theories that is said about it. And then another theory is that it was placed there by an invading force to burn the castle, down from the inside. The person responsible for this theory is thought to be Gerald Fitzgerald, Earl of Kildare. Now, Gerald Fitzgerald is also, I think he either built or he's associated with White's Castle, which is another castle that we do. And he was a renowned magic practitioner and black magic. He practiced the black arts. And he had attempted to take Lep Castle several times and failed. Now, the local myths say that the elemental is the spirit of an ancient O'Carroll, which was one of the families that owned Lep Castle, who died in the castle from leprosy. This is said to be the person, or the reason for the decomposing facial features that's on the elemental, because it shows itself first as a lady in a red dress. And then to men mostly, and then as the man approaches it, says, okay, here, this is a nice looking woman. As he approaches her, then she starts to deform into a sheep-like creature with a decomposing face and appalling stench that would be like rotting flesh. So it was also said to have been brought in by Mildred Darby, because she practiced the occult as well, and she dabbled in it. So there's various theories behind why the elemental is there, but I have smelt. I won't. It's like sulfur. You would get that sulfuric smell. And that's supposedly the first sign of it going to materialize. But that would be the only thing that I've smelled there now. And again, that really bad smell of something that's been dead for a while. It's actually not really bad. It actually smells kind of sweet. You know?
It's a sickening sweet smell.
No, it doesn't.
Well,
Yeah, it actually is. It smells. It's the reason why you're so repelled by it is because when you smell the hint of decay, it should, by all rights, be an awful repellent odor, and there is a hint of sweet because of the sugars in the body that are breaking down.
That's horrible.
I don't mind it at all.
But that would be the theory behind the elemental. Another one that we have, I don't know whether you're familiar with a thing called a puka. A puka would be based roughly on the same thing, where there would have been put in there, or the theory again, or the myth behind it, is that witches would have conjured this thing up, and it would be put onto a farmer's land, and then because the farmer would have refused to hand over his first-born son to the witches, so they would put this thing on to his land, and it would affect the cattle and the livestock. Crops would die. It could appear in any form, in any shape. That would be a puka, and it would stay. Myth is that it stays with the family down through the generations.